Perfect. And we're going to be recording also recording. I would say we still have to give it our all. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're letting everyone into the webinar this afternoon. So I'll get the green light that we're ready to go. Okay, good afternoon. I'm Karen Peterson. I serve as the Dean for Global Campus, and we're really excited to have you join us this afternoon to talk about micro-credentials. Our session is entitled Getting Started, and that's the idea. We have a few slides we're going to go through this afternoon, and then the goal is to leave time at the end of the session for questions. So we're hoping that you've come to today's session with some questions as well. So we're excited to have you here. Throughout our session today, there's going to be several of us presenting, and as we do that, we'll each introduce ourselves and provide a little background for our role at the university. As you all know, micro-credentials, we began last fall with a pilot initiative, micro-credentials here at Kansas State University. We've come out of that pilot, and so we're ready to grow our micro-credential offerings at the university. So today's session, we're going to cover a few things. We want to talk just a little bit about micro-credentials, and then we want to get into the steps. How would you go about bringing a micro-credential idea from idea to actual learners enrolled in the curriculum and completing that curriculum? So we're going to cover the stages of discover, consider. We're going to talk about how you would go about developing, proposing, designing, launching. And of course, we're going to share some resources with you as well as we head through today's session. So we think about micro-credentials. This is a world that if you look at other institutions across the country or around the globe, they may define a micro-credential in a similar way, or they may define it slightly differently. But at Kansas State University, we've defined a micro-credential as a credential that comprises relevant, high-quality, market-oriented short units of learning that offer pathways to achieve affordable, accessible, focused, and immediately acknowledged learning opportunities. So again, when we think about a micro-credential, there's some key words in there. The idea of high quality, the idea of market alignment, the idea of being relevant. What we see here at Kansas State University, unlike some other institutions that have implemented micro-credentials, is we're offering micro-credentials both as credit learning experiences as well as non-credit learning experiences. So we're going to talk about those today. When we think about micro-credentials, we think about them and some of the characteristics that underpin our micro-credential initiative is that these credentials go through an approval process. So they are K-State endorsed. And so much like any other curriculum, they are reviewed. What we see with micro-credentials is the opportunity to offer more flexible delivery, and we'll talk about that this afternoon. As we stated, there can be both credit or non-credit. But what is really important is we think about these micro-credentials and we think about the competencies and skills that underpin them, that these are competencies and skills that are in demand within the marketplace. And what's important, and we'll showcase this in our slides today, is that a micro-credential or the digital credential, the digital badge, as some people refer to it, is shareable. And I think that's what's really critically important. It's easy for employers to see the opportunities that undergird a micro-credential as we think about that shareability. So on the slides today, you'll see the micro-credential website. And so as we go through this session this afternoon, we'll be sharing some resources, and that site provides a lot of really great resources for you as a faculty member or as someone wanting to get started on launching a micro-credential. So as we push forward, I'm going to turn it over to Ron Jackson. He's going to get us started with the process. So Ron.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron Jackson. I'm one of the program administrators within Global Campus. I work with the colleges of agriculture, business, engineering extension, and K-State research and extension. The areas I'm going to cover today is the discovery stage. And I'll be covering these bullet points. The first one is the support. We ask that micro-credentials go through a major academic unit, whether it's a college, department, or unit. And Faculty Senate has asked that all micro-credentials go through Curriculog and have an approval process that's internal to their major academic unit. Be sure to use one of us program administrators as your guide through this process that we're covering today. Skills and competencies. This is a critical area within micro-credentials and is one of the areas that really showcase the student learning outcomes. So we start with those that you're familiar with and then break those down into skills and competencies. A pro tip is to use Lightcast. It's one of our open skills resources that we'll cover later today. High educational standards. Of course, this is offered through K-State, so we want all of our credentials to have high academic standards or best practices. With that in mind, there will be an assessment piece within micro-credentials, and there's even a place on that on our digital badge information form that goes into Credly that we'll discuss a little later as well. The target audience and interest area, please use our market research analysts that we have at K-State, and they can assist you in this capacity. The promotion plan, obviously we want our learners to know about these micro-credentials, so have this in mind, develop your plan to get the information to the learners. The design aspect, we have instructional designers here at K-State that can work with you to assist you with your course. So working alongside of you as a faculty member. And speaking of, I'll go through a little area. Again, Lightcast is our skills and competencies areas. And these are the categories within Lightcast that you may want to make yourself familiar with. And as we talked about at K-State, we have market research analysts that can help you do a competitive analysis, a market demand, and other things to improve your micro-credentials. And these are the folks that are our market research analyst team. Next, I'll turn this over to Joe.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Just our microphone there for a second. So one of the things that we think about with micro-credentials is, oh, things have to be different, right? Those are new. Those are something special or extra. And they're a different credential. But on the credit side of the house, when we think about our micro-credentials, we're using our existing systems. So students enroll in their credit micro-credentials in CASIS. We actually code those classes with a micro-credential attribute so we can find them. Students on the credit side also use Canvas, the credit version, just as they would for any other course. Their credit micro-credential could be online or it could be in person. And our credit micro-credentials, whether they're for undergraduate or graduate credit, are for fewer than 12 credit hours. And so that makes them smaller than a certificate. And that's important to know as far as the micro-credential goes. Finally, we do encourage stackable micro-credentials. And so you might be thinking, well, what's a stackable micro-credential? And if you consider the fact that many students might want to dabble in a certificate or a minor, the same is true of a micro-credential. And potentially the courses for the micro-credential, should they really enjoy that subject, could be a gateway into your degree program. It could be a way to help students find a new passion and a new area that they're excited about. I'm going to have Debbie come up.
Thank you, Joe. So in addition to credit, Kansas State University offers non-credit micro-credentials, and the considerations are somewhat different for non-credit. Learners don't enroll through CASES. They enroll through one of our non-credit registration systems where they can sign up for a micro-credential. They can make payment at the time of registration. And if it's an online micro-credential experience, it can take them directly into an invitation to the course in the learning management system. Similarly, we have a learning management system that is Canvas, but it is used solely for non-credit. And we call it Canvas Pro just to distinguish it from the university's main instance of Canvas. And we, as I said, our registration system has an integration with Canvas Pro where they get an invitation to the course, and then they can go directly from registration to accessing the course, depending what the course, how it's set up, which leads to the next consideration, which is the flexibility of non-credit. Non-credit has more flexibility as far as the dates you offer it. It's not locked into academic terms. You can have defined start and end dates. They can be self-paced courses with certain parameters set up. The pricing, there's flexibility there. It's not tied to tuition and fee schedule. You determine the pricing based on what you need to recover in the way of costs. That's really a departmental decision. There are no administrative fees currently for micro-credentials through K-State, no overhead costs other than credit card surcharge payments, which would be charged. At Global Campus, for our non-credit programs, we set up a specific non-credit account for that program, and all of the revenue and expenses for that program are generated through the Global Campus account. So those credit card surcharge fees get deducted. And then what happens at the end of the day is that money goes back to the department. And it's really the department's decision how those that net revenue is distributed. And the primary consideration for whether a micro-credential should be maybe credit or non-credit is who is your target audience? If it's intended for professionals who do not need and aren't seeking credit toward an academic degree, then perhaps non-credit is the way to go. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Janice to talk about getting started with developing the micro-credential.
Okay, so you're ready to start thinking about this micro-credential. And one of the main things that you want to consider and work through is you need the approval and support of your major academic unit. And each of the colleges and major academic units here at K-State are working on their own internal policies for the approval process of the micro-credential proposal. And you want to make sure that you have that backing and support before you move forward. Janelle's going to go into that just a little bit more in her when she speaks to that. The other information that you're going to want to make sure you have is your contact information, what the title of the micro-credential is going to be. And we do recommend that you don't use micro-credential in the title, that the title needs to be meaningful and fairly short, because we have some real estate. We have a certain amount of real estate that we can use on those digital badges. The other thing that you want to consider is the level of your micro-credential, whether it's credit at the undergraduate or graduate level, or whether it's non-credit, what the modality is, in person, online, or hybrid. And so then once you've got those things solidified, then you're going to want to visit the micro-credentials kstate.edu website. And on that third tab over that's highlighted in purple there, you'll see develop. And we have a micro-credential information form that you can complete. And that is submitted and notifies us that you have an interest in developing a micro-credential. And then one of the 3 program administrators will get in contact with you to help you move further in the process. So now that you're in this piece and you've raised your hand and you want us to help you, a couple reminders going back to some of the things that Ron said is think about your micro-credential and does it have and provide robust skills and a competency-based assessment process? Does it accurately measure the achievement of the learning outcomes? Does the micro-credential result in a skill that's relevant to the workforce? Does it fall under those categories that Ron talked about there with Lightcast? Because that's a service that identifies real-time labor market trends and analytics. And that will really help you as you then move forward in completing the forms that are going to be required of you that Janelle's going to visit with you about.
So the next phase that we move into is the proposed phase. And like we said, this really starts happening as you're thinking about creating a micro-credential. You're going to go through a process and have conversations with your department. You're going to want to solicit support from your department and your major academic unit. And then you're going to want to fill out, you can do some draft forms that are available on the website that you can before you start those official forms and those faculty senate approvals through Curriculog. So before you consider a micro-credential and start looking at things, there is a policy in place now, and that document can be found here through this link. And we've talked about it before, but there are some internal processes. You're going to want, department chair approval by your major academic unit before it goes into Curriculog officially. And then it's not going to have some of those approvals at the Curriculog level because you've already taken care of them internally, and it's going to make the whole process go a little bit faster. You're also going to want to consider if it's a permanent term or non-credit micro-credential for approvals, and we'll talk about that a little more as well. And of course, along the way, we want to help you with those draft forms that are available on the website. Your program administrator can help you with those. This is just a sample of what an internal process might look like for a major academic unit. Again, discuss your ideas with your department chair before even meeting with one of your program administrators or your micro-credential contact. Because we are going to ask about that. Have you been talking with your department about your ideas? And then we'll start kind of deciding whether you wanted to do a non-credit or credit micro-credential, if that's permanent or term approval. Permanent for a credit course is a little bit closer to what it currently looks like. But again, some of those internal processes with your department and your major academic unit aren't taking place in Curriculog. So once you have a draft going of these documents, you're also going to have a draft of a digital badge information form that we mentioned before. And this is what builds that badge and what builds the website. So this is going to be all the front-facing things that a prospective student, the learner earner is going to see, and also employers are going to see what you fill out on that digital badge information form. And again, your official proposal can help with that form, as well as your micro-credential contact. And that's all going to be uploaded to Curriculog together after, again, you have those internal approvals, and that's 4 and 5 there. So after you are done with those official forms, you are going to work with your Curriculog specialist and get those uploaded into Curriculog. You'll also want to submit your digital badge information form at that time. And we ask that you submit all those things together, because once you're fully approved in Curriculog, you're fully approved by Faculty Senate, then we can take that back through our global campus processes and really turn around that information and get you all set up with a web page and that digital badge. I think this is what we have for what our digital badges look like. On the left, you can see the non-credit, and that has that yellow triangle that distinguishes a badge as non-credit. And then the navy blue triangle is a credit badge. And then you'll also see the stars there. And sometimes we just have one star. That's more of a basic level of learning. And then it can go all the way up to 4 stars, which is a more advanced level of learning. A lot of the ones currently on our website are just that fundamental level that or the foundational level that you'll see up there. And it's really up to you. We don't have any specific criteria of where that falls. It's up to you as an instructor where you think the skill set is and the learning is behind that micro-credential. You'll also see the skills, and those are the ones that we've been talking about with that Lightcast tool. Those are the skills and competencies. That's the metadata behind this badge. And this is what the employers and students are seeing. This is what they're like seeing on their Credly account, which hosts the badges for Kansas State. And they can click through on those skills and just learn more about what the earner has learned by receiving this badge. And again, that digital badge information form is helping us to build all of this. And now Janice is going to come back with some more information on design and launch.
Okay, so you've got approval. You've heard from Faculty Senate that your proposal has been accepted. What are those next steps? So you need to think about then how you're going to design this course. And, we have got an instructional design team in Global Campus that can assist you if you don't have access to an instructional design in your college. So they're happy to assist and can provide some really excellent information about how to get your course set up and design it so that it fits with what it is, the audience that you're looking to provide that information to. The Teaching and Learning Center on campus here also has you're all probably very familiar with that, and our Office of Assessment can also provide you with that information. So then you're ready to launch your micro-credential. And like we've been alluding to, we have a microcredentials.kstate.edu website, and it's got all things micro-credential listed there. And we're going to publish the micro-credential on the website, and we'll also create some enrollment links there for the enrollment and the registration. But those forms that Janelle was talking about are what are going to help us. So this is a view of our micro-credential offerings website. It's a clip from there. And you can see up there, we've got some filters where you can filter down and refine that search. And these badges these tiles are all listed there. And this is a page that's different from what Janelle just showed you. Janelle is showing you the digital badge information. This is our forward-facing public area where a prospective student might be sent to find out more information about the badge. And so we're listing all micro-credentials at K-State on here. And then if you were to, I'll show you a little better view here. So on the left, you'll see the tile that we build for each of those micro-credentials. And then if you were to click more or click the learn more, down there at the bottom, on the right-hand side, that page would pop up. And that is also, as Janelle talked about, that digital badge information form. All of that information on this page is pulled from that digital badge information. And the reason we're asking for that at the time that the curricula proposal is submitted is so that we can immediately begin work to build this site and build the tile and get things up and going quickly once that we get the same notification that you're going to get that micro-credential's been approved. So we want to jump on it right away. You'll notice that, and I think, a pointer right there. So that is the link if you wanted to either enroll for a credit course that's going to take you over to Cases so you can enroll in that specific course, or you can register. And like Debbie talked about, we have a whole system that's set up to handle our non-credit registrations. And so we'll build that, work with you to get that built so that students can automatically pay by credit card and get registered for that micro-credential. And then Joe's going to talk with you about earning and awarding that micro-credential to those students.
Thanks, Janice. So in an ideal world, at the end, the learner completes their micro-credential, and sometimes that takes a matter of days or weeks, and sometimes that might take more than one semester. When they've completed, we will work with you to determine who is fully ready to receive the micro-credential. You know, if you said they must have a minimum certain GPA for a credit course, or they had to have turned in so many assessments or a portfolio for a non-credit course, we will check with you to make sure that we know who has actually earned it. Because just like in our regular academic world, not everyone who signs up may complete, right? Sometimes folks have other things come up and they don't complete all of the tasks. So once we've learned that they've successfully completed, my team and I will go ahead and enter the learner's information into our instance of Credly. Credly is a digital badge information system, and it meets the Open Badge 2.0 standards, which means that a student or learner, a non-credit learner, can take that digital badge, and I always love the way Dean Karen describes digital badges as postage stamp sized, whether it's on their email signature, in their resume, shared out on their LinkedIn page. They will take that with them wherever they go. They can port digital badges from multiple places into an Open Badge wallet that they maintain, which is a really great feature for our learners who are younger and have a whole career of upskilling ahead of them. And so this is a great initiation into K-State has trainings and learning opportunities that others may not. Once we know who gets these badges, we send out an email to let them know that Credly is a trusted partner with K-State. And when they get that, it's not spam. And so we encourage them to go ahead and accept their badge and to share it. And they actually receive instructions on how to do that. And then the Credly system, if they don't respond to the first email, sends a couple of follow-up emails to them. And then once they have accepted their badge, they can then share it out, put it in their email signature. And so right now, I think we've given over 300 badges from our first year doing this, which is really exciting. And we have ways that in the future, we could even potentially upload student learning portfolios into Credly. And, you know, folks can go in later and click on that, see that metadata, see the portfolio, and know what the learner has done as far as skills.
All right. So this is a summary slide of what we have talked about today, and we wanted to allow ample time for questions from those of you who are here in person, and as well as those of you who are joining us via Zoom. And we have quite a few folks who are joining us via Zoom. This is a summary of the different stages, the different steps from the idea stage through launching it and the learner being awarded the digital badge. We get asked a lot, you know, how much time should I allow? What's the timeline? We don't have a specific timeline for this. It just needs to be adequate, especially for a credit course. You have to think, I've got to get this so that it's ready and students can see it and select it before it's enrollment time. So we are saying, you know, work at least a semester ahead for credit courses. And for non-credit, there's more flexibility there. But again, you've got to consider that maybe you need to somehow promote this to your target audience, and you've got to allow time and effort to do that as well. So at each stage in the process, allow time, and our global campus program administrators are here to work with you, support you, and help you really in every step along the way. Our goal is to help you come at this with the right perspective about a micro-credential, because it's different from, traditional academic credit. It's skills and competency based. We want to help you be successful in the proposal that you submit for formal approval by Faculty Senate. And then we want to get this published so that we can get learners enrolled and that they have a successful experience. So we are here to support you. This last slide before we start with questions shows the team who has been here today presenting, plus a couple of other folks. Ron and Janelle and Janice on the top are the program administrators that you will work with. Each of them works with different colleges. Ron works with the College of Business, Engineering, and Agriculture. Did I miss anybody, Ron? Gotcha. He's waving me off like maybe I did. Janelle works with Arts and Sciences, Education, K-State Libraries, and the School of Leadership. And Janice Nickel works with Architecture, Health and Human Sciences, and the College of Veterinary Medicine. Did I miss anybody for you? Good. Joe and I are the co-directors of the Program Development and Management Unit at Global Campus, and our unit is the ones who work the most directly with the micro-credential opportunities that go through the Global Campus role in that. And then the other two on this slide are the Global Campus Instructional Design team. Trina McCarty is here with us today, and David DeHass is joining us on the webinar. And they're here to support you, provide guidance, answer questions about instructional design, course design. In addition to these folks, we have the web team who are putting these micro-credentials on the website. And we have non-credit specialists who work on the non-credit side to set things up in Credly and get the enrollment registration set up for that. So we have a team, and we're here to support you and provide you the guidance as you need it. Reach out to us early and work with us early and often, I guess would be my motto. So we have time here for questions. Dean Peterson, do you want to facilitate that? Janice, do you want me to include something?
Well, yeah, K-State Research and Extension,
Oh.
you might just indicate what they do.
Right, K-State Research and Extension. Janice works with a lot of K-State Research and Extension programs, but Ron also does because College of Ag has some extension program. It kind of depends, but they're a major academic unit. So we have this microcred email that you're seeing here. If you don't know who to work with, work there. You can always reach out to this and it'll get funneled to the right person. Okay.
So just one quick point, I guess I would say, if you're on the Olathe campus or the Salina campus, there are personnel on those two campuses as well that are working collaboratively on our micro-credential initiative. So please know that there's our network of individuals that have been a part of this process. I think I said in the beginning, we started a year ago with our pilot. We had over 50 individuals that were involved in this, faculty members across every college, administrators, just a wealth of individuals that have taken us from the start to where we are today. The thing I would say too is this is a journey for Kansas State University. So as you ask questions this afternoon, we may have a very specific and direct answer for you. You may ask a question and we may say, that's an incredible question, and that's work we still have to accomplish. And so I would say that the analogy of you're building the plane as you're flying it, that's a little bit what we have here when we think about micro-credentials. But our goal was to develop a solid infrastructure that any faculty member, any major academic unit can work from, and we can navigate and help you get to where you want to be. So we're going to open it up for questions here in the room, as Debbie said, or those online. We've got a lot of folks that are on with us virtually this afternoon. So questions?
There are two questions online.
Okay.
And I don't know if they can hear me, so you might want to rephrase or repeat. The first one is, can micro-credentials be organized, including courses from different colleges?
So the question is, can micro-credentials be organized with courses from different colleges? So thinking about sort of that opportunity to look at skills from different fields, bring them together in unique ways, the answer to that is certainly yes. And we encourage you to think about how you can do that, how you can deliver something that meets the needs of the marketplace. So the answer to that is yes.
The next question is, could the same micro-credential be offered for both credit and non-credit?
So the question is, can the same micro-credential be offered for credit and non-credit? Just want to make sure everyone can hear all the questions so as we respond to them. And the answer there is yes as well. So when we think about that learning opportunity, if that's your vision, that you want to be in a position where some learners may be taking it for credit, other learners may be taking it as non-credit. That's a conversation. Again, that program administrator is a great first step there to help you to think about what that setup would look like. How do you navigate that? What are the ins and outs of that? What are the pros and cons of that? All of those things. So that is something that we can manage. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. Okay, other questions in the room here? Very good.
Could you share any best practices or key learnings from the pilot program that people should be thinking about beyond what is presented here?
Okay, super, great question. So the question is, can we share some best practices or highlights from the pilot phase of our work that might be helpful for what we're doing now going forward? So let me share one, and then I'm going to ask the team to share as well. Janelle talked about the fact that we have a micro-credential data collection form. And she talked about how that form needs to be completed kind of early in the process when you're completing the curriculum request. And one thing we learned is that when an individual enrolls in the micro-credential and they complete that micro-credential, we want to very quickly signal to them, you've earned this digital badge, and go here and open it up and share it with your colleagues, your workplace, etc. And what we learned is that we need to do those in kind of lockstep fairly quickly, because what happens if you complete the learning experience and that email that Joe talked about doesn't happen soon after that, then you kind of are like suspect of that email that comes from Credly, because you've kind of forgotten you did this, you've forgotten, and you're less likely to accept that digital badge. And if you don't accept the digital badge, then it's not part of your backpack. And so that is one learning experience that we said, okay, we need to have that posted, ready to go. So when someone completes that, and we get the green light from the faculty member that this person has earned this digital credential, we need to deliver it to them so that they can accept it and move forward. So that is one learning outcome. I'm going to ask the other team. The second thing I guess I would say is just, we also realize that having a pretty robust website for our micro-credentials with that information that is sort of that metadata, so a learner knows specifically what am I going to learn from this, that's critical. Going through the pilot, because it was a pilot, we didn't have that website out there. We were kind of working behind the scenes, and the faculty that worked with us on the pilot, and thank you to every one of them that came along with us on that journey, they had to bring their audience to that learning experience because we didn't have a visual presentation that was externally facing. So that website is critical. I think as we push forward, so again, getting in front of that, ensuring that when that micro-credential is ready to launch and be out there and publicly available, that website can be a nice place to send prospective learners so that they can gain more information. The third thing I guess I would say, and then I'll turn it over. I keep thinking of these things. It was a great question. The third thing I would say is that we learned that we need to have a robust website, not only that's outward facing, so that prospective learners can see the micro-credential, the array of micro-credentials that we offer. But we also need to do things like today, where we're providing insights to individuals that are thinking about a micro-credential to take some of the mystery away from how do I get from point A to point B to point C to point D. And that's part of what we learned as well, is that the more we can do these kinds of sessions, and we're happy to do them for a college, we're happy to do them within a department. If you go back to your department and they're like, what? Micro-credentials, I don't know what to do. We're happy to come and do a briefing to, if you say I've got 10 minutes to talk about micro-credentials in this meeting, let us know. We can be there to provide the highlights for that audience so that everyone knows there's not a mystery here. It shouldn't be difficult to do this. We want to make it as seamless as we can, but getting the word out that we are past the pilot stage and we're ready. Other thoughts, team, in terms of insights that we've learned? Okay.
So one of the things that we learned, and I'm going to back this up a little bit here, is as you complete the curricula proposal form, you're all probably really familiar with standard learning outcomes, and they are a great place to start. But what has to happen is we need to reword things just a little bit differently. As you look at that description, we want to make sure that we are talking about what that earner is competent in and what they're able to do based off of having earned that badge. And so we have to kind of flip those standard learning outcomes and just adjust that wording. And that's not been a real stumbling block, but it was a revelation as we started through the process. So it's just thinking about things differently in a, little different way of rewording things. So that's my revelation.
Other pearls of wisdom from the team or insights? Any takers? Does that help?
It does.
Okay. I think the other thing I would just say is we're a learning organization as a university, and we are going to continue to learn about micro-credentials. The one thing I would say is that our team, we are actively involved in webinars that professional organizations are offering, conferences that are out there on micro-credentials, alternative credentials. We have a network of individuals at the university that are plugged into those conversations because we are a learning organization, and we're going to continue to learn and grow, and we're going to mature in our offering of alternative credentials as well. And so I think we're early in the process, but it's an exciting time at the university. So other questions this afternoon? This is great. Got a little more time. Happy to answer other questions. And we'll give you back some time if you don't have questions. Another one here.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I just want to make sure I'm not monopolizing if there are others on the table.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a logistics nerd, and I am excited to hear about the process that's both robust and straightforward for developing and getting micro-credential approved. I wonder if you can tell us how administration of these micro-credentials functions inside of a unit. Does it tend to be focused at the level of, for instance, the college, or is administration and assessment typically organized in concert with all of y'all, obviously, at the school level? Is there usually a point of contact inside the school for whom this is their responsibility? How does that work from an administrative or responsibility perspective?
Okay, so the question really is framed around the administration of micro-credentials, kind of within the major academic unit
Yes.
in particular. Because you know, we can support sort of that larger administrative side of things across campuses. We have personnel that can do that. I would say that within major academic units, so departments, colleges, schools, that process is probably unfolding as we speak. And so, you know, we're not sitting here today within the College of Health and Human Sciences, here's your contact person that's sort of the go-to within the college and within the College of Arts and Sciences and, you know, within the College of Vet Med and at Olathe and, you know, so I think that is still kind of unfolding as we look at what is that process for each major academic unit to move from an idea to a proposal to an offering that's been approved and ready to roll. I think again, we're sort of navigating some of that today. Yeah. I think we're naturally going to mature. It's the thing that we've noticed across institutions, all that we've done in terms of just recognizing institutions that have been in the micro-credential landscape longer than we have. There's a natural evolution that you begin to see as you think about what's the role of an academic advisor when we think about micro-credentials. How do we recruit when we think about micro-credentials? So as we think about those roles and functions across the university, I think there's more opportunity for us to deepen our thinking, our understanding, our processes. And we're in the early stages of this, but I think our conversations are going to, it's sort of like when the rock goes in the pond and you've got your first little circle and then your second circle and your third circle and your fourth. I think we're probably right now at about that first circle, but we will continue to add personnel across the university, roles and responsibilities as this becomes part of the fabric of the institution over time. We all know that an undergraduate degree program, 120 credits, thank you very much. We all know that, you know, undergraduate and graduate, and, you know, we have a sense, this is kind of a new language for us. It's a new space for us. And that means that we're going to kind of grow into it and we're going to learn as we go. Great questions. Other questions from the group? Okay, another question here in the room.
Do we have learner feedback on any of these credentials? And is there any way that we could access that to see what's really working well and what we could maybe incorporate?
Great question. So the question is about, do we have learner feedback on the micro-credentials, and can we incorporate that as we grow and build other micro-credentials? One thing, when we did the pilot initiative, and I'm going to tap Joe here in a second, so she's preparing herself. But when we did the pilot initiative, we had the faculty members that went along with us provide us with some really great feedback. And some of that feedback was incorporated into our second iteration of the curriculog form. So today we now have a credit curriculog form and a non-credit curriculog form. And they look a little bit different. So some of that feedback was used there from an internal perspective in terms of processes. And I'm going to let Joe sort of speak to the learner side of this.
Absolutely. One of the sort of data points that we currently have is within our Credly platform. And we have increased the amount of learner acceptances and shares of their digital badges significantly since we first started through, as Dean Peterson pointed out, some of those strategic communications early and often, timely. And I think the other piece, as I'm literally seeing students walk across class outside the room here, we need to socialize this with our learners. And so that's the other piece, is the more we talk about the value of these alternative credentials with them and how these are ways that they can show specific skills, what we've heard from across the country at the professional conferences that Dean Peterson referred to is that learners really find the badges helpful in job interviews. When they go in, they can't articulate per se that, well, I got this bachelor's degree. Well, what'd you learn? But if they look at the metadata behind their badge, they can say, I have a skill in digital media. I have a skill in computer science, and they can specifically break down those skills. And that's why, as they were sharing earlier in the presentation, it's so critical to really dig into what are the skills behind this, because we're helping today's learners either get their first job, get their next job, or change careers. And I think that's the piece. We would love to partner with folks doing the micro-credentials and survey learners, but right now the big piece of data we have is those acceptance and share rates, and they have just been going up and up since we started. So I feel like it's working. We just don't have any qualitative feedback at this point from the learners themselves. We have the quantitative, here's what they did with what we gave them. So.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing is that we have also seen that opportunity for learners to apply something directly and immediately. So feedback from a specific learner was, I completed this micro-credential, I utilize this in my work, and it is impacting on my community because we received a major grant as a result of this micro-credential. So I think that's the other thing, that ability to apply, that ability to make a difference within a community, within the life of that learner, within their employment, whatever it might be. We begin to see that really take hold. The other thing that we probably should mention, which we haven't talked much about today, is that some are seeing micro-credentials as that gateway to greater education or advanced education at the university. So if you think about micro-credentials stacking into a certificate or a degree program, where when we think about adult learners, sometimes they're hesitant to go back to school. They've been out for a while. Their learning experience, maybe it wasn't that they completed their degree. And now they're sitting here saying, oh, I need to upskill. I need to reskill. But I'm nervous about doing that. Sometimes a micro-credential can be that gateway to get someone back into the learning experience, get them thinking about how can I take this and then parlay that into a certificate or a degree program, or complete that next credential. So I think that's another thing from a learning perspective as a university. The more that we can see these as the gateway point for someone to come into the university, to introduce them to the university, to introduce them to the learning experiences here, but potentially go to that next level and stack that into a degree or a certificate or a minor or whatever the case might be. I think that's a wonderful opportunity for us. We probably haven't, I think we have potential there to do more of that.
We have another question in Zoom.
Uh-huh.
Can 4-credit micro-credentials be awarded retroactively to alumni?
Okay, so the question is, can 4-credit micro-credentials be retroactively awarded to alumni? And the answer there really is no. I'm just going to say it out loud. No. The thing about a micro-credential is that it's skills-based, competency-based, and it is a learning experience that is from start to finish. It's planful. It's highly engaged. It's developed. And so again, we'd have to see there are ways where someone's learning experience can be considered, but it's not for a micro-credential at Kansas State University. Other questions online or here in the room? We're really excited that you joined us this afternoon. So we'll just see if there's another question. Any other takers? I'm turning to our folks on on virtual. Well, again, thank you for joining us. The thing that we want you to hear from us today is you are not in this alone. And that's what's important for you to know. There are a team of individuals here to support you throughout the process. If you have this idea and you're sort of like, "Ooh, can I do this? Can I do that?" Reach out. We can help you to think about that idea. As we talked about today, credit micro-credentials, there's some framing around that when we think about credit micro-credentials and how the university operates and using existing policy and process. Non-credit has a little greater flexibility depending upon what you want to try to achieve, but we can help you navigate. If it's like, ooh, is there a market for this? Is there an opportunity for this? Is there an audience for this? We can help you to think through those kinds of questions as well. If it's non-credit and it's like, where should I price this non-credit learning experience? Because I don't have tuition as my framework to work from. Where should I price this? We can help you with that. Think through that as well. The decisions in large part are yours as someone that's proposing a micro-credential, but the opportunity for us to help to provide those best practices, that guidance, we're there for you. So please know that.
Here's
Again,
one more question.
oh, one more question. Here we go.
With the process set up, what are the benefits of setting up a micro-credential course versus setting up a course within my department? As the process seems to be similar. Is it just the reach of the content of K-State versus non-K-State affiliate?
Yeah, I'll let you take that one, Joe. So the question is.
The question is related specifically to the difference between setting up a regular credit course for an offering in the upcoming term versus setting up a course as a micro-credential. And there are a few differences here. So the first difference is a micro-credential is intentionally, especially on the credit side, meant to package together a unique set of skills and competencies. And so when you're thinking about, well, I'm going to put these 3 credit classes together to be a micro-credential, what's the extra value add? What is the student going to gain from this? And I always say, is there a really cool experience that they can have when you combine the different knowledge bases for those 3 classes? Is there something extra that they can do? They produce something, a portfolio, or have a learning experience or a field trip that is over and above that really brings home what those skills they learned can help them do. The other piece of this is we tend to not equate a micro-credential on the credit side with one credit class. For the credit side of the house, think of it more as a mini certificate. And so you're thinking about packaging a few different things together versus one credit course equals one micro-credential. That's kind of what our policy group has talked through here at K-State has been, how can we make this more of a value add versus just, oh, you get a star and you get a star and you get a star and you all, took this class. So think about it from the perspective of maybe you're teaching them some really great skills and you add in a special trip to a particular microscope that has a specific, usage that they might not get to use normally, right? Versus they just took the credit class and, completed the student learning outcomes.
Okay. So great questions this afternoon. Again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you for joining us. We're going to end on time today. We started on time. We're going to end on time. So as always, the URL is up here. We're going to get that on the last slide. And so if you have questions, you can find us at microcred@ksu.edu, and the website is here as well. If you're here in the room, we'd love to have you register if you slipped in a little bit later so that we know you were here. We'll get the slides out to everyone so that you have them and you also know who to contact should you have further questions. So again, thank you for joining us this afternoon.